Welcome back, everyone, to the best F1 podcast on the planet. And we are just straight off the back of an Austrian Grand Prix that entertained us. I mean, you will see in a minute. Matt is reporting live from the Red Bull Ring. Yeah, that is commitment. But we are Box Podcast, powered by Box Club. Do check them out in the link down below. But if you do want exclusive content from us, we encourage you to follow us on social media, wherever you are listening to us. Do follow us. That really makes a big difference. Give the podcast a 5-star rating if you love what you hear or see, and get involved. We love it when you comment, so please do that. Any involvement is, I don't know what the word is very we're very grateful for it, basically. But we have a lot to dive into, so let's crack on with the show.
All right, guys. So yeah, I'm currently sitting in a field next to the Austrian track. And firstly, if there's a bit of interference today, you're going to have to allow it. Okay. I haven't got my new mic. I've got my old mic. So if there's interference, I apologize in advance. But I mean, I don't know if you can see it from my video, but the view behind me is just outstanding. You may hear some helicopters. Literally just behind me is where all the private jets are. So I've already seen Max Verstappen's jet over there, and so many other jets. You got people being flown in helicopters.
One thing I can tell you for sure is that you guys at home have a much better view of all that than I do. I'm gonna hold my phone up. This is how we're communicating right now, Matt and I. That's what I get to see. If you're listening only, it is just a blue sky and the top of Matt's head.
What about that, Luke? Is that better?
That is going to be awful for everyone else to watch. So yeah. I'm happy to take the hit here. But it does, what a shot that is. I mean, that's got to be top 3 most beautiful podcast locations ever.
I mean, honestly, this place is utterly amazing. The track is sick. The location is sick. The locals are fantastic. Like, it is just where we're camping at the moment. You walk out and literally just got all the hills behind you. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
Would you encourage anyone that is thinking about, I want to go to a European Grand Prix? Would you recommend the Austrian Grand Prix, not just for the views, but the weekend as a whole? How's that been?
So there's a helicopter. You can probably hear. Yeah. Mate, the actual track, I've always rated the track. The weekend has been brilliant. The thing that's really made it difficult this weekend is the heat. It's been like 32, 33. There's been no breeze. You've got people trying to go under trees to get shade. I mean, it is hot. And that's the only thing that's made it really a bit unbearable this weekend. But other than that, and watching Ferrari, other than that, it's actually been a sick weekend. And the views around here, I'd recommend it. If it's on it's definitely a bucket list thing to go to the Austrian Grand Prix, because one of mine was Spa. I got to do that. That was sick. And now Austria. And it's an amazing track. Amazing track.
I must say that it's looked unbelievable, but obviously there's so much more to a Grand Prix weekend than just what you see on track or on TV. You know, there's so much more that goes on track beyond what's on TV. There's so many events, different things happening. And I think if you do have the opportunity to try and go to a Grand Prix, definitely do it. But I mean, Austria in particular has looked unbelievable. Although, yeah, you could have dialed back the temperature a little bit.
Oh, mate, it's been so hot. I've seen people collapsing. I've seen people literally going into bushes just to try and get some shade. It's been, I would say it's close to unbearable. I mean, we're in the stands up by turn 3. Very fortunate, great views, amazing views. But my God, there was no breeze whatsoever. It was just there's no clouds in the sky. I mean, there is now, but there was just nothing, not a breeze at all. But yeah, no, it's been amazing. It's been fantastic. And shall we delve into it really? Because this was a weekend where after Barcelona, we thought actually Ferrari going to be on a roll here. I'm leaving the Austrian Grand Prix kind of a bit baffled by where were we? Let's just start with Ferrari, shall we? P2, P3 qualifying. You're thinking to yourself, okay, this is great. Lewis Hamilton finished P5? Charles Leclerc P8. I mean, where what happened? Because obviously I may have missed a few things because I wasn't watching on TV, but was it just the fact that we didn't have any pace? What the hell happened?
Yeah, the Ferrari situation is a real strange one in Austria because it really seemed like after the Saturday qualifying, we knew that, they were probably in the mix with what I thought was they were in the mix with Max. Kimi didn't get to put in his final lap. He had looked really quick throughout all the qualifying sessions, free practice. But obviously Max's crash, which we'll get onto, led to Kimi not being able to qualify in the position that he should have. And realistically, that bumped the Ferraris up, probably 2 places above where they should have been. But even so, you thought, well, they're in there, okay? And then I think what we're seeing at the moment is Ferrari do seem a little bit stronger in race pace. I think we've seen them close in that gap in quali, and I think we're also seeing that gap close in race pace. So leading up to that, I was like, yeah, I think it could be done. And what made the whole thing even weirder was that Lewis Hamilton was actually really strong in the first part of that race. He was staying within sort of anywhere from a second to a second and a half within George. And then all of a sudden, they fell off a cliff. Leclerc struggled at the start. I think he went a bit aggressive with George and then ended up losing the place to Lewis and then Max. And it kind of just spiraled out of control for Charles. And I think we should touch on Charles in a bit more detail. But yeah, Ferrari as a whole, they brought big upgrades this weekend. I don't know what to say about them. It's a really disappointing weekend for them, but it doesn't seem like anyone's too downbeat about the upgrades. I think the gist that I'm getting from watching...
I'm so sorry. I just got like helicopters going over my head. So I'm sorry. Like this is like going to be the first...
I will mute your track so no one will even hear the helicopters.
So why am I doing this then? If you're just going to mute my whole track?
Because when you're talking, people will hear you. But yeah, it was, they don't seem too disheartened by the upgrades. It's not like they're like, oh, we've brought the upgrades and nothing's working. I think it was just a poor weekend. They really couldn't seem to hold on to their tires very well. They really struggled when they went onto the hard tires, both of them. Charles Leclerc came out and said explicitly over the radio, he said, these tires are shit. Those were his exact words.
What happened with Lewis, by the way? Why did they pit him back onto softs? Because I couldn't quite work out from... Why did they do like 3 stops for Lewis?
We're going to have to discuss pitting Lewis and putting him onto the softs during the VSC. Look, there are people back at, or at the track and back at the factory that are way brighter than us and have way more information. But it seemed like a strange one. But ultimately, I'm not sure if I think the only position it probably cost him was to Oscar Piastri, ultimately. Yeah. I think Max Verstappen, in the end, was too quick for Lewis, and the same with Kimi Antonelli. Yeah. But it did seem like a strange call because I didn't really understand what there was to gain from that.
No, I was like, because I pitted him and I was like, what are we doing here? Can I just go back and talk about Lewis? No, and I seen it live today was simply, as Max Verstappen would say, lovely. There's nothing closer in F1 than the battle you get between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. That fight between both of them was iconic. It took me back to 2021. I know Max obviously moaned about it afterwards, saying he was pushed off, whatever. But seeing it, it was a beautiful battle.
Yeah, I mean, it is really like watching nothing else. I don't even think it's to do with nostalgia. It's genuinely, you witness how unbelievable it is when they come together. And when you see 2 people at that level battling as closely as they were today, it was amazing. My heart was pounding. So I did, obviously Max did come over the radio and complain, but come on, man, you give it as good as you get. You've got to just put a lid on it sometimes. And I think, ultimately he had the upper hand on pace, on Lewis. But yeah, it was, surely everyone wants that week in, week out. I think everyone here and everyone, tuning in would take a Lewis and Max title battle. Come on, you would.
100%. And I look, Lewis Hamilton, 41 years old, still has it. That were great overtakes, not just that one alone, but seeing him come through the field, seeing, I mean, after they pitted him, he had so much traffic. Some of the overtakes today were beautiful. But yeah, difficult day for Ferrari. And I think they'll be going away from this going, I don't quite know what's happened here. We left Barcelona with a win. Great. We've come away with a P5 and a P8. We've got to move forward to Silverstone. But, with the likes of Red Bull coming into play today, and even McLaren, Piastri looks strong today. There is still questions, and I think this is where we are with these regulations at the moment. From track to track, we're just seeing such big changes within the teams. But the only team who isn't really changing is Mercedes.
Yeah, and this is what I said. I posted a video, which, by the way, if you do want exclusive content, then do head over to our social media channels. The links will be in the description down below. But I said in the video that I put on there after the race, I said, this season is so exciting. You come to a new track week in, week out, and you're like, I actually have no idea what is going to happen. It's so hard to predict because it's like, oh, well, McLaren are quick this week. Next week, it's like, where the hell are the McLarens? Now you've got Ferrari winning a race. What the hell? And then you've got, Max Verstappen looking like he could have won the race in a Red Bull. And I'm like, it's absolutely mental and it's so unpredictable, which is why I think this season is turning out to be so exciting. But like you say, the only car that is predictable and it's going to be good and it's probably going to be the strongest is the Mercedes. And I'm hoping that changes.
No, me too. Because I can't keep going to races, by the way. This is the second race that I've been to and George Russell has won. Granted, when I went to Spa, that got overturned. Lewis Hamilton won it, but obviously that was afterwards, which was a bit irritating. But I've come again here, and he's won again. I can't keep going to races and just watching George Russell win. Okay, I just can't.
Maybe,
I can't.
Maybe you are Woody's good luck charm.
Which is ironic, really, because I didn't want him to win. So I mean. What are the chances? Hey, what are the chances? Just finishing on Ferrari. I mean, if you're Charles Leclerc, you'll be leaving this race. I mean, Lewis Hamilton, I think, extracted the best he could out of that. But if you're Charles Leclerc, this is another race weekend where you are looking at it and going, I'm struggling here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Charles Leclerc situation is really baffling me. I think it's kind of crazy because obviously we knew last season Charles was really strong against Lewis. And everyone was kind of like, Lewis is done for. And Charles has always performed strong against his teammates. And he started off this season pretty good. We saw a lot of great racing between him and Lewis, actually, when the season started. And yeah, he's really fallen off a cliff a little bit. I mean, Charles's pace was nowhere today. I mean, he had no answers for anyone, to be honest. And he ended up coming in towards the end of the race to grab a pair of softs just because it made no difference to his race. And he obviously wanted to get these hard tyres off. But really difficult times for Charles Leclerc. Like I say, I'm not going to join the over-dramatic brigade and say that Charles Leclerc is rubbish. But he will definitely be doing a bit of soul-searching right now because he's well off it.
But like I say, if you're Lewis Hamilton, you're coming away from this weekend slightly disappointed, but as I said, I think he extracted the most he could out of that. P5, the Red Bulls and McLarens were definitely faster than him today in the Mercedes, but I think it'd be slightly positive. He still continues that 100% streak of finishing every race so far this season. That's cool. I like that. Hello. And look, I'm going to show you, but look how cool that is.
That is quite cool.
And he's just in the back of the shot. So yeah, if you're watching this, you just got a guy on one of those one-wheeler things going, this is the most random podcast I've ever done in my life, by the way. I'm just going to say it. But yeah, if you're Lewis Hamilton, you're coming away going, look, it's the best we could do.
Yeah. But to be honest, I don't think Charles will be thinking too different, to be honest. The car didn't look great during the race. So, but Charles will be disappointed that he finished so much off Lewis because he started ahead of him. So yeah, a bit of head scratching for Ferrari, but I don't think it's the end of the world for them. I think they're gonna come into Silverstone with still a good attitude, I think.
Let's touch on Aston Martin, because look, we've always seen Aston Martin, and we've said this year they're awful, they're woeful. Seeing it in person is something spectacular, right? They started at the back of the grid, and actually seeing them, they are poor. Like this Aston Martin team, I can't explain. And actually seeing it, how slow they are. I think they got lapped. How many times did they get lapped? 3 times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it actually ended up happening, but it was certainly close to happening. That Alex Albon, who is the person ahead of Fernando Alonso, was going to lap him or did lap him. I can't exactly remember whether it happened, but that is so bad. And Aston Martin are in absolute desperate need of this B spec car that they have, because they are in huge trouble. It's, I think it's quite ironic that Fernando Alonso got noted for speeding in the pit lane. I didn't know the car could speed, so that's quite impressive. It's good to know that it can, but they've got a huge project on their hands, and we've always said we want to see this Aston Martin project succeed, because you see the ambition in the team, the ownership, everything going into it. It's great to see. That's what we love in F1, but it's not working out, and they are in, they're in big trouble. And even, I mean, it was a bit strange. I know it was only free practice, so calm yourselves, don't attack me. Jack Crawford was got a quicker lap than Fernando Alonso, which I did think was strange in free practice.
So you saying Jack Crawford is better than Fernando Alonso?
Now you're just putting words in my mouth.
I think that's what you're saying.
Starting a fight with.
I think that's what you're saying, Luke.
I'm not starting a fight with those guys again. Right,
No.
have it on record. Fernando Alonso is just as good as Jack Crawford.
Just as good.
I'm
like
joking.
that.
He's a 2-time world champion and he's unbelievable. Do you know what? I never thought I'd say this. I've got a frosty relationship with Fernando Alonso, but I feel so bad for him, because he should not be, racing where he is racing right now. Fernando Alonso is an unbelievable F1 driver, and this is not fair on his career.
Yeah. Right. Before it starts getting windier, shall we get onto some of the top teams? I mean, if we miss the likes of Cadillac, sorry, I apologise.
No, well, do you know what? Normally I say we should talk about Cadillac, but we're going to skip Cadillac because they lasted about 3 laps and they brought 10 upgrades this weekend. A truly awful weekend for Cadillac. I hope they're able to turn it around, because there's no point having bias standards in F1 like Aston Martin. But on to the next team.
McLaren. Free practice, they look pretty good. And heading into qualifying, obviously Q1, Q2, they looked relatively good. And then Q3 comes along, they're pretty much non-existent. However, in the race today, I think they'll actually be pretty delighted with how it ended, because Oscar Piastri P4, I know Lando Norris was in P7, but Oscar Piastri had the pace and he looked pretty good.
Yeah. Oscar Piastri has had a bit of a bizarre season, I'd say. It was a weird weekend for McLaren, and I know Lando Norris came out and said, or it was something in an interview where essentially he said, you guys are only looking at the timing screens, like not the GPS or whatever, essentially saying we've got more data than you think we're quick, we're not. Which, is a fair point to make, because he's not lying, but they did look quick for FP1, FP2. I really thought, and well, all of free practice, really, I really thought that they were going to make an impression. I thought it was going to be between them and the Mercedes, but it just didn't pay off for them. But then Piastri, race pace, it was there. So again, really bizarre. This new generation of cars, unbelievably difficult to kind of decipher what the hell is going on with them, because, we've had races where McLaren have definitively looked like the second quickest car. You and I have had debates about that. I don't think it's fair to say at this point that any car is the second quickest, the third quickest, the fourth quickest, because it changes weekend to weekend. And, that's between McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull now. Mercedes are the quickest, but McLaren just need to get a little bit more consistent. Lando Norris this weekend said that they're 3 months behind in development.
Which is
Well,
a massive thing, isn't it? 3 months in F1 is a long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's really not an ideal situation, especially coming off the back of winning 2 constructors championships, and Lando Norris is now world champion. But I think Red Bull are, proof that one upgrade package can really make you look serious, proper serious. So we know that McLaren are fortunate. They've got the Mercedes engine, and if you're like me and you think these duo ratings are a little bit suspect, you'd probably want the Mercedes engine over everything. So I think McLaren are in a great position once they're able to deliver on the aero side of things, because that car is quick. They just need to unlock a bit more pace from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, just another helicopter. That one's for
I
me.
can see that
I've only
one.
got. How can you? I've only got half an hour, and I got to go. It's taking me home. So let's touch on Red Bull, shall we? Nasty crash for Max in Q3, and I want to touch on this because you did a clip yesterday, and I did a clip afterwards about I do not understand how a guy in a wall after a massive collision, there's not a double yellow flag or even a red flag, but instead it's a single yellow flag, which allowed George Russell ultimately to go on and get pole position. And look, George Russell read the rules very well, and fair play to him. Kimi Antonelli didn't. He just would assume, like all of us, that it was a double yellow flag and that was it. But for some reason, I don't really know what the FIA are doing there.
That whole situation was crazy, by the way. The fact that they whipped out a yellow flag when Max Verstappen was in the wall on one of the quickest corners of the track is absolutely obscene. And I've seen George Russell getting a lot of hate online for it, and I'm like, it's not his damn fault.
It's not his
The
fault at all.
FIA, yeah, but he played the rule book, and ultimately, I do believe it would have been very difficult for him to see Max Verstappen. He wasn't that far behind him. Max was already in the wall. George comes flying around the corner. He's looking at the apex. All he's looking at is what information is being fed to him, which is, the marshal's flags and what's coming up on his steering wheel. So he just did what he had to do, and he did lift off. I will make the argument that is lifting off by 0.2 safe? Is it going to be like, whoa, like, yeah, I did lose it in that corner and I ended up crashing into Max Verstappen, who was already in a wall. But because I lifted off and, slowed down by 0.2, we're both okay. I'm like,
Do you know what? I'm going to defend George on this. It's nothing he did nothing wrong there. It's the FIA making such stupid rules. And I think when you look at it, but also there's that other aspect that actually, if you've been told that there's a guy in a wall in turn 9, well, you should think to yourself, I need to completely abort that lap. But he didn't need to. He played the rules fair. The thing that not bothered me as such, but I found so weird, right? George Russell celebrated like he just won the World Cup final, okay? He got pole position because other people couldn't complete their lap, i.e. Kimi Antonelli, and you're celebrating it like it's a massive achievement. Well, it is getting pole position, but it just, I don't understand it. It's just completely off.
I know what you mean. I spoke about the sadness that George Russell kind of has about his aura at the moment last week. And it kind of felt like the celebrations were a little bit disingenuous in the sense where it's like, it didn't feel real. But because of the point that you're making, I think George wasn't 100% guaranteed P1. And I think there was a false sense of confidence that I got. This is just my interpretation, right? I felt a huge amount of false confidence coming from him, where he was like, I wish I could have finished the lap, like I would have been 4 or 5 tenths ahead. And yeah, it just felt like he was really trying to position himself as something that he wasn't. And look, I'm happy for George. He needed this weekend. This weekend was massive for George. But yeah, the circumstance in which he got the pole position, not ideal. But we really have to, as fans, we can't be letting the FIA off that lightly. This, in my opinion, is a real major thing. I'm not being funny. If George had lost it on that corner, we could be looking at a potentially fatal crash. And that could have been absolutely avoided by throwing up the double waved yellows or an instant red flag. It was, it wasn't like this happened slowly. This was an instantaneous thing. You looked at it, Max went off, bang, put the red flags out, whatever. Okay, it ruins qualifying, not a great spectacle, whatever. It is what it is. Safety is paramount. But they didn't do that. And I find it so strange because for so long, they don't even let people race when it's wet outside. And I'm like, oh, but you'll let people race when there's someone in a wall. Well,
In one of the fastest corners of the racetrack. That's absolutely fine. That's acceptable. Anyway, but yeah, no, fair play to George for that. But yeah, Max Verstappen looked great today. I don't know where that pace came from. He was really challenging down. The thing I don't understand from today, and you probably can enlighten me here, George Russell pitted. I was thinking to myself, okay, we'll just bring Max in the final lap after. Then you got a battle. They left him out there so much longer that actually by the time he came out, he was about, 10 seconds behind George?
yeah, so I think they knew that on pure pace, they were probably just a little bit off the Mercedes. And I think that, Kimi Antonelli had even younger tyres than Max Verstappen, I believe. But you really saw that towards the end of the race as well. So what Red Bull were trying to do was build a tyre offset to give Max the advantage later on when the fuel load is lighter. George would be, struggling on those tyres. And it almost paid off. I think what I said in that video that I put out earlier is, imagine if we had just 5 more laps of the Austrian Grand Prix, because we could have had one of the best endings to a race that we've had in a long time. The top 3 finished within 3 seconds of one another. It was getting unbelievably intense. And unfortunately, I feel like this happens a lot. We were just a couple of laps too short to get to see the action really unfold. But yeah, either way, I actually do think it was a great strategy by Red Bull, because I think they had to try something. It would have been very difficult to overtake George without a tyre offset.
I tell you something that is really special to watch, and that's why I always say, if you can come to Austria, one of the tracks to come to, the Orange Army is outrageous. Like, they just are. They're class. And it's really interesting today because walking back from the track, George obviously won it. There's a lot of people who are just unhappy with George winning it. It wasn't a favourable win. And that's not even just from Max Verstappen fans, Ferrari fans, McLaren fans, even some Mercedes fans, they wanted Kimi winning. So it was really quite interesting, the difference in opinions post-race.
Yeah, I always find the George. I do feel like George is unnecessarily hated, and I kind of get it, right? He's a little bit teacher's pet, right? But to me, George always seems like a nice guy. Like, he presents himself very well. I don't think, I think George gets an unnecessarily difficult time online.
Do you think he
Which
does his homework on time? Is he that type? He'd take an apple in for the teacher?
George Russell is the kind of guy who, at the end of the lesson, would say, "Sir, you forgot to give us our homework. What's our homework for the weekend?" That's George Russell in a nutshell. But he's not a bad bloke. George Russell is a good guy. He's a great F1 driver. And I think he gets a difficult time from people because he can rub people up the wrong way.
Would Max Verstappen be the one who's like chucking books at George saying, "Shut up"?
Yeah. Max Verstappen is the guy that like pings elastic bands at people and eats his sandwiches at the back of class. But it's like, You know, the kid that is just like stupidly bright, even though he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But either way, I mean, if we're talking about Mercedes now, then a great weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at Kimi, obviously it's difficult. He didn't get his lap in, but P3 again, pretty solid race. I do think another 1 or 2 laps he would have got max, but I think Kimi will go away from this weekend going, okay, I lost out 10 points to George, but he's still in it. He's still picking up good points week in, week out. He won't be concerned.
Yeah, I think the only thing Kimmy will be frustrated with is how scrappy he was in lap one in particular. He went off at turn 3, turn 7, and that cost him.
Yeah,
It was just a little bit scrappy, and I think if Kimi was able to sort of even just hold on to P4, then it could have been a very different outcome because yeah, I know he was on a different strategy to George, and that might have been different had he have not messed up the race earlier on. But he looked very quick again. So I think Kimi will be kicking himself a little bit. You know, he blames himself heavily for the yellow flag incident in qualifying. And I think they've been giving him a bit too much slack for that. I saw Toto say, how's a 19-year-old supposed to know that? It's like, yeah, but like he's an F1 driver, you know. It was his mistake. He should know. Read the rule book. That's just the way it goes. It's a lesson learned. And Toto did say it himself. He said, "You're never going to make that mistake again." And it is a learning curve. But I don't think we should be going as far as saying like, you know, how's a 19-year-old supposed to know that? He should. He should know that.
but ultimately, I do think Bono. But it's very confusing because Bono did come over the radio, go yellow, yellow. So if that's me driving, I'll be thinking, oh, okay, double yellow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, clarity and communication is key because if that is, you know, if yellow is what they say for double yellow, then and also it's confusing, isn't it? Like if it is just a single yellow, just say yellow flags, yeah, and then I know 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did cost Kimi and potentially even cost him the race win because I do personally believe over the whole weekend Kimi was looking quicker.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, George Russell will go away from this going, yes, I picked up a good amount of points over my teammate. I won the race. I'm back on track. But again, this is still a weekend that he's coming away going, yeah, I got all of that. But there were certain parts which are circumstantial. Qualifying, his teammate finishing qualifying P4, all these little things. And it wasn't a completely straightforward weekend for him, was it?
No, but you know my opinion on circumstantial
Yeah.
victories or, you know, where you end up because of circumstances. That is just the nature of the game. You know, Kimi Antonelli was also circumstantially very unlucky with the VSCs when he pitted. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, George Russell made the most of the situation. And ultimately, I find it very difficult to take anything away from him this weekend. It was cool, calm, collected. He went out, delivered. It would have been very easy for George Russell to not deliver this weekend after the pressure he's been under, you know, from the past handful of races. And actually, you know, George just went out and delivered. So I think he deserves the credit. I think he'll be very happy with it. And hopefully it does propel him back into, you know, the level we believe George Russell to be at, because then we can have an even better title battle.
Yeah. No, agreed. Another weekend, another strong performance for the RBs. I mean, Lawson P9, Lindblad P10. I don't know if you saw, they showed it on TV, but there was this overtake. I don't know if it was Lawson or Lindblad, I can't remember, but they almost collided. It was with a Haas. It was a beautiful overtake. I don't know if did they show that on TV today?
I think it was Lawson.
It was outrageous. Honestly, the stands were just like gasping because it looked like they were so close they were going to hit each other.
We have to talk about Liam Lawson because he is having a really good season. And I don't want it to go unnoticed because there's been a lot of rumours about RB, looking at forgive me because I've forgotten his name, the Red Bull Junior driver in F2 who's doing very well. And it's obvious that it's not going to be Arvid Lindblad who is at risk because Arvid Lindblad too is having a very good season. And You know, he's the young Red Bull Junior driver that they've just brought in. If they're going to replace anyone, it's Liam Lawson. I don't think he deserves that.
No,
And I think this season he's really coming into his own. He's putting in some mega drives, and you know, I think he looked great today. And off the back of everything he's had to go through, it's so good to see. And it was confirmed. You know, the RB team principal came out and on TV and was saying like, no, these are all just rumors. Like we haven't spoken about anyone, but I
good. He
hope
deserves a
Liam
seat in
Lawson.
F1.
He does. He absolutely does. And I'll put this out to you, right? If Liam Lawson does lose his seat at Racing Bull, which I want to just put on the record, I think would be categorically wrong. But if he did, come the end of the season, they were like, you know, we're going with this Red Bull Junior driver. You can beat any other team in this. What team picks him up?
I would even say something like an Aston Martin. Get rid of Stroll. Even like
That's not going to happen.
even like a Cadillac.
He doesn't deserve. He deserves better than a Cadillac.
Well, he's not going to go to Audi, is he? Hulkenberg and Bortoletto are there. Do you replace those two? Probably not. Alpine, the only person is probably, yeah, Alpine, Colapinto. But again, Colapinto's had an all right season. So he struggled a bit today, but that's the only other place I could see him.
There is a better choice, and I'm going to tell you exactly where it is. I'm wearing their top right now, which, by the way, if you want a 15% discount off this lovely Haas merch made by Castor, you can use our affiliate link, which will be in the description down below. He replaces Esteban Ocon.
True. Actually, I didn't. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I'm not being funny. I do believe now at this point, which if you've listened to the podcast for a few years, you'll know that we believed Yuki Tsunoda deserved that Red Bull seat over Liam Lawson. But I believe now, if I got to pick between Yuki Tsunoda, who has been heavily linked with this Haas seat of Esteban Ocon's, I would take Liam Lawson over Yuki Tsunoda at this point.
No, actually, I would agree with you. And I think Ocon today, it was another difficult day. He was lapped twice, really difficult day for him. And he's not performing. And I do not think it's going to be long until Haas go, we need to replace him. And I agree, it may not happen this year, but Liam Lawson would be a prime candidate for that seat. I do agree. Or Luke, do you give Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez together? Best friends.
Could you imagine? That would there'd be fireworks. I don't think that works. Someone I think people commented just like, oh, like they don't hate each other or whatever. They were
No, they love each other.
yeah, no, I agree. That's our mistake. I think they're best friends.
I don't know. Yeah, Ocon's in trouble. Ocon is in trouble. I really do fear for Ocon.
Ocon is in trouble because we've always spoken about this. When a team sort of tries to do this combination of more experienced driver and young sort of hungry driver, and that's kind of what they got going on. But you know, I think when the young hungry driver is so clear of your experienced driver, you've got to accept at some point that it's not working, and it's not going to be the young driver that suffers the cut, obviously. Yeah, I think Esteban Ocon's days are numbered in F1. I think it's unlikely he'll lose his seat during the season, but I think this could be the last season we see Ocon in F1.
The only way Ocon will lose his seat this season is if the rumours are true that Yuki Tsunoda will replace him. Yuki Tsunoda will come out of that Red Bull reserve driver, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll accept that," and he'll go into that seat. That's the only way I think Ocon will lose his seat this season. However, if you are Haas, you know you've got Ollie Behrman there who's got pace. You're not going to get rid of him because he's the future of your team. Someone like Liam Lawson would be a great fit for Haas. I do think alongside Ollie Behrman. But yeah, if you're Ocon, it is worrying times. It is worrying times.
Yeah, but ultimately, I mean, I know that this has really spiraled from a Liam Lawson discussion. I do hope Liam Lawson just gets to keep his seat at Racing Bulls because he's having a great season, and Racing Bulls are as well. I think they're 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 looking pretty strong, and I just think the driver partnership, the culture at the team, everything about them, even the way they look, as artificial and as that, I think they are just a great team in a great position.
Yeah. So they're basically all the teams. But Luke, I have a question for you, and I sent you
Whoa,
a photo.
it's not.
Oh, we got Alpine. We're still going through all of them, are we?
Uh, that's the podcast. We,
Oh
I
yeah,
do want to
sorry.
touch on Audi. I really want to touch on Audi.
Bortoleto P11, Hulkenberg P12.
Thank you. Yes, a very encouraging weekend for them. Again, the only frustrating thing for them is that they're still just on the cusp. And Audi did bring upgrades this weekend. Quite a lot of teams brought heavy upgrades this weekend, but they looked good, and I think they'll be really happy with how that program is developing. I think the Audi project is exciting. I do think they are ones to watch for the future. I just think they'll be a little bit disappointed that they weren't just able to get in to the points.
Yeah, when we say the best of the rest, I don't even think they're the best of the rest at the moment, because I think you do have your Mercedes, you have your Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, and then your RBs are the best of the rest, because RB is just picking up points week in, week out. So it is very difficult for Audi. Audi's biggest, rival at this moment in time is RB, and they're struggling to get close to them, aren't they? Because when you look at that, they were lapped today, but Bortoleto was still, some time off Lindblad.
Yeah, and they need to close that gap because that's who they're competing with.
Yeah.
I don't think Audi would have come into the sport thinking, well, we've got to go straight after Mercedes and Ferrari, McLaren, whoever. They would have been coming in like, if we can keep the momentum going from Sauber and really, just pick up points where we can throughout the season, we'll be happy for that as year one. And they are doing that. But they will be now looking at RB thinking, okay, how can we close that gap? Because that's where they need to be. They're a little bit off where they need to be.
Agreed. Just quickly touching on Williams. Okay, I'm honestly sick of talking about Williams week in, week out on how bad they are. Carlos Sainz retired again today. Like, we've spoken about it, that they sold Carlos Sainz a dream, even Alex Albon a dream. They promised the world that they're going to be competitive this year, and they've come into this year. Honestly, it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing after last year, where I do think they overachieved. I think they had a fantastic season last year, picked up some podiums. To come into this year, and honestly, watching them today, I felt truly embarrassed. I was sitting next to a Williams fan, and his response was, "It's just shit, innit?" That is literally his response, and I felt for him. I honestly felt for him.
I mean, it is shit. It is shit, and every single week I watch Carlos Sainz drive around in this Williams. A little piece of my soul dies because that man does not deserve it. And I think of like, oh my God, he raced for Ferrari and he was good at Ferrari. There's no one can say otherwise. And then to end up at this Williams team that have not delivered on the things they promised all of us, not just the drivers, they promised all of us that 2026 would be different. And it hasn't come to fruition. So I pray that you turn it around, because Williams, you are a historic team that deserves to be up there. You've got two, in my opinion, very good drivers, especially one in Carlos Sainz. They are not going to stick around forever. If Carlos Sainz gets an opportunity elsewhere, which he could easily, he will leave. He will not come back to you.
Why should Carlos Sainz stay with Williams? In my eyes, he shouldn't. There is nothing attractive about this team. He's, like you say, he's come from Ferrari. They promised him this dream, and they haven't materialised. It hasn't materialised, and it's not even close. It's not even like they're fighting for P7, P8, P9. They're not. They're clutching at straws and even struggling even to get P11, P12. It's just embarrassing.
I mean, they're struggling to even finish a race.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of the times. I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's not looking good for Williams, but we knew they came into the season with some difficulties. But I think our argument always is, some people probably think we're a little bit harsh on Williams because, they are a smaller team in terms of infrastructure and budget and everything, but we were promised big things. I mean, if you came around my house and I told you we were having fajitas for dinner and I served you up a casserole, you'd be a little bit pissed off. And that's what's happened.
I mean, yeah, very, very true. But to the guy I was sitting next to today, I hope it gets better for you because I saw the pain in your eyes. I just realised I'm sitting here, right, with a Ferrari hat on and a Ferrari t-shirt, and I literally look like a full kit wanker. I literally just felt like that.
I didn't want to say it, so I'm glad you did. Everyone at home has been thinking it. So
just finishing
just got that.
Just finishing off this podcast before I actually head off and try and start a long journey home. I sent you a picture earlier of a fan wearing a Ferrari hat and a Red Bull t-shirt. What is your thoughts, and I want to hear from you guys as well, what is your thoughts of wearing different teams' merch? Because I've seen a lot of it this weekend, and part of it, if you're happy, absolutely fine. But I know, and I did speak to one person who wasn't very happy, said, if you support one team, that's who you support. You don't wear any other merch. And you're literally putting on a Mercedes hat and a Haas top.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I've got no problem with it.
I don't.
The problem is I think is that not a concept from football? You don't wear another team's t-shirt. I think times are changing.
So if you turned up to Liverpool, right, and you're wearing a Man United hat,
yeah, you get like punched or something. and I'd agree. I'd be like, I'm glad you hit that man. But at F1, it's just different. The problem is, do you know what the thing is with F1? Is so much of the merch looks so cool. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, look at this Haas top, right? How can I not wear that? And then this Mercedes hat. I mean, this is one of the Miami special hats. It looks so cool. I can't not wear it. And I think I don't have any allegiance, like specifically to an F1 team. I've never, maybe if I truly felt that bond, I wouldn't, but I don't think it's as, I don't think it's as like, I don't know what the word is. It says, like in football where it's like, oh my God, like that team, like I spit on them or something. But the F1's not like that.
No.
I've got more of an allegiance to a driver. I'm a Lewis fan, but whether that might change when he eventually retires. But you wear whatever you like. If it looks cool, put it on. If it's a Mercedes hat with a Haas top, you're not going to bother me.
Agreed.
What are your thoughts on it?
I'll be honest with you. Hang on. No, I need one of those. They look cool. I don't mind it. The bit I did find a bit funny today, because the photo I sent you was a guy wearing a Ferrari hat and a Red Bull t-shirt. That's a bit funny because I can't imagine. Can you imagine them doing that in 2021 when that had that? Who's supporting? Well, if Max wins, it's Max. If Lewis wins, it's Lewis. But I mean, look, I've seen people wearing Williams hats and Alpine t-shirts. It's cool. F1 merch is much different to any other sport. I love F1 merch. If I was going to wear any other top, it would be the Mercedes. The Mercedes top, they've absolutely smashed it with the Adidas. It looks great. And actually, even the Red Bull stuff looks amazing. I really like the colour. I really like the livery this year as well.
I've got a Red Bull top for you at my house.
Oh, so is that a nice little surprise when I get back?
Yeah, I've tried it on to make sure it fits. And
what? You're going to have to wash it.
Yeah, no, I hadn't showered either when I put it on.
Oh,
so
good.
I'm sorry about that. But
that's all right.
Yeah, do you know what? I actually love the Racing Bulls t-shirt. I think that looks so good. So if anyone is listening and wants to send one my way, my letterbox is open.
Right. There is. Oh, you want
can I just touch
more topic?
On one thing? I just want to touch on one thing because this is about your best friend, Zach Brown. There have been rumours coming out of the paddock this weekend that Max Verstappen could end up at McLaren. Now, Max has come out and said, or, through his manager said, I would like to see out my career at Red Bull. But Max Verstappen is not a driver that, is born to drive in the midfield. And that's true. that might look different after this week. Last year, Zach Brown said, I wouldn't swap my 2 drivers for anyone. Now there are strong rumours coming out of the paddock that he's having conversations with Max Verstappen. But what the hell has changed in the last 6 months?
It's Max Verstappen. Like we've always said on the podcast, if Max Verstappen comes knocking, you do not turn him down. And this is it.
No, exactly. It's like being in a club and being like, oh, I'd never kiss that girl. And it's like, mate, she would never even look at you. So it doesn't matter. There was a point where Max Verstappen, the idea of Max Verstappen going to McLaren is unfathomable. And now it's kind of potentially a reality, but I think less so after this weekend. I just think, why do people come out and say this stuff? I get it, because they've got to be like PR merchants, but surely anyone would be like, well, if the opportunity for Max ever came up, we'd explore it.
Yeah. No, I think he would go. I think they would be silly not to take him. He's shown again today in Austria the quality he has. Putting that, look, Isaac Hadjar finished P6. The difference, Max Verstappen, no one else in that Red Bull car would have put that in a P2 and even challenged for the race win today. Max Verstappen is just built differently, and that's why he's sought after, because he's such a quality driver.
And can I just say, I spoke highly of Max in the video that I posted on TikTok and Instagram, and someone commented saying, like, with laughing faces, like, classic Max Glazer, he can only do it in a fast car. And I was just like, if only you knew. I am quite the opposite. Exactly. But yeah, I think that does conclude this week's episode. So I'm going to pass it over to you to do the outro from that lovely scenic outlook.
So hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast currently. And look, this is well out of my comfort zone. There's cars in front of me, and this is no exaggeration here. There is about 10 to 20 people sitting on their chairs, just staring, thinking, what is this man doing, sitting in the field with a tripod and a camera, talking to himself? Well, I've somehow got through this, because it's very awkward. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's been an amazing experience. I've loved Austria. Honestly, I'd really recommend, if you want to go to any F1 circuit, come to Austria. The views are amazing. The track is amazing. I mean, it just around, the atmosphere is amazing. The Orange Army, it's just great. So I'd really recommend it. Spa, as I said, I've been to, amazing. Austria is brilliant. You're obviously going to Silverstone next week. Are you going to do a podcast from there? Yeah.
I'm going to come back in the evening and I'll just film a podcast here. That's the beauty of going to a Grand Prix in your home country. Just before we do finally wrap up, top 3 Silverstone. I actually think we could get away with doing a little podcast, like a pre-Silverstone podcast midweek.
Yeah.
I think if we make that like an audio platform exclusive, so you'll have to head over there. But I think then we can talk about it a little bit more in depth, because I know you've got to go, but quickly, top 3.
Lewis, Kimi, George.
Oh, I love the delusion of your double Ferrari kit coming out of that. But
mate, he won in Barcelona. He can do it.
Yeah, I would love nothing more than Lewis Hamilton to win at Silverstone, especially while I'm there. I just think they're down on the straights a little bit too much for my liking. I'm gonna go George Russell, Lando Norris.
Oh
no,
what?
I'm gonna go Kimi Antonelli, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen.
Okay, interesting. Do let us know. Do drop a comment. But hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. Luke, I'll take a photo of my setup afterwards and I'll send it to you. Might even post it up on social so you can check it out. But yeah, have a great week, and we shall see you next week for a brand new video. And yeah, as always, check us out on social media, TikTok, Instagram. Honestly, your views have been amazing. So thank you so much for the interaction on there. Really appreciate it. We're growing nicely. We've got a little community, which is great. And yeah, we shall see you later. Bye-bye.